Morning, Izaz.
Good morning, Michael.
Data protection.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. We used to, going back 20 years, always frown upon data protection, not from it isn't really that important perspective, but just because, well, to be frank, it's just so tedious. And it was very tedious back in the day because it was seen not to be a very serious topic or interesting topic for lawyers to become involved in. The Information Commissioner is a great organisation, the ICO, but it's there to encourage compliance. It's not there to hit you with a big stick. And the Information Commissioner will only really deal with the top end of abuse and get involved. But generally speaking, the abuse of data, of what we've seen over the past 20 years, is a great cause of concern. And via Stay Legal and via Laudit, we're determined to sort of give guidance as to the importance of data, both from a company and from an individual perspective. So morning, Izaz, in terms of the data, why is data so important for a business?
I think it's effectively the backbone to the business because they've got, data in various aspects. So if we're looking at customers or client base, they are people that have contacted the company or that the company's either selling or supplying in some way, shape or form. And it's a means of communicating effectively with those customers, marketing to those customers at some stage in the future. And given the fact that the company already has a relationship with that client base, with those customers based on a good experience or a good quality product or service that has been supplied to them previously, reputation of the company in the marketplace, they're likely to want to do more business. So it's easier to sell to existing customers that are already used to your staff, your team, your products, your service, than to go out and find new customers. So I think that's the key thing, to maintain that database and maintain that relationship with people so that you've got the avenue to sort of explore and expand your business and give out free trials or get people to sample your products or anything new that you've got in line, take feedback from customers that are used to your products or services. So it's absolutely key to have that and to maintain that to a very high standard.
No, very much so. And if you do recall that the marketers that we've come across over the years have always said to us, your new set of invoices, your new round of income is sitting in your database. It's all there. The fact that you haven't harvested it and looked after it is something which is a big weakness for the firm. And I think that goes across the board for everybody. It's huge, the data. If you think about every time you're online, every time you just blindly accept all the cookies, as soon as that happens, really, people are collecting your data. People are knowing where you're shopping, where you're visiting, what your general online activity is. And that data then can be amassed and then dealt with other third parties. So they may send your data to other shirt companies or to other clothing companies. If you're in finances and you've just signed up with a mortgage, they will send that information on to IFAs, independent financial advisors, who may reach out to you. And that's all done with your consent, even though you don't really know that you're doing it. We've all had horror stories in terms of data. I've had one recently with a company that apparently I ticked the box which allowed them to take £15 a month out of my account. Now, I don't recall doing that, and I've also sought for a subject access request to get the information as to how they got my data. But there are so many unscrupulous people out there that are using this data, both commercially and, of course, we've seen, politically in terms of EU leave and et cetera, how data is just, it is king. So it's huge that from a company perspective, you do treat it as a valuable asset and have a team of people on it all the time and look after it and clean it. Clean it being if someone sends you an email saying, I want to be removed from your database, don't go back to them and say, why? Remove them. You have to by law. And that means that database yearly will be clean and it'll be valuable.
Correct, yeah. And I think in terms of value and extracting that value, you're really looking at extracting that value in two areas. One, if you've got permission from the people that are in that database to cross-sell other services, similar, identical or similar to the services that you have, or complementary services. So that's key. If you've got that if you've got that consent from the individuals, that suddenly becomes very, very valuable. And then the other aspect of it is that if you are looking at selling the company at some stage in the future, this database would, as you mentioned, be a critical part of that. It would be a tremendous asset. But again, in relation to that asset, you would have to give some strong warranties and potentially some indemnities with regards to the data that you hold, that you have the consent to hold that data, that you've got the consent from the individuals to market certain information or products or services, and that you haven't had any of those people that are the current database, that form part of the current database, come back to you to say, remove my details. So it has to be materially accurate and correct.
Yeah.
So I think these sort of things are really, really key. And any business that looks at data and says, actually, this is a key part of our business, this is a key asset, they will then have the mindset to want to invest and maintain that, as you would do with any valuable asset of your business.
Because we've noticed over the years, I mean, it's been 22 now, that people are more switched on and more conscious and more sensitive to the data. Maybe it's an age thing with me, but I would say, not cross, but I get annoyed now if I think, hang on a second, how have they got my email address? And people are, you go everywhere, can I have your email address? Well, why do you want it? We send you a receipt. No, I don't want a receipt, thanks very much. I'll take it and walk away that way. Because they want your data in order to sell you things. And it may not be to everybody's cup of tea when your inbox is full. There are some companies that, despite me having requested on numerous occasions for them to remove me, I still get emails. I still get, it's usually the same, the cruise companies. I went on a cruise a few years ago. They still email me. To do something about that, you need to go to the Information Commissioner, who will take it upon themselves to put a bit of pressure on the cruise companies. From an individual perspective, it much depends on who you are. If you can't be bothered with any of if you like getting emails and you're not too bothered, that's fine. But remember that when you are in any situation whereby your personal data is given out, be it in a shop, be it online, as soon as you can be identified, so that if, for example, if I was coyle@gmail.com, that would be classed as a personal data because I can be identified. If it was redrun1234@gmail.com, probably not. But anything that identifies that person means the Information Commissioner and data protection applies, which means that from a company you need to apply the Data Protection Act, and from an individual you need to be comfortable and confident that you provided your consent for that data to be transferred, harvested, mined, sold.
Any aspect of
Any aspect to it, and it's important that as an individual you are aware that as soon as you subscribe to people and you tick those terms and conditions, you tick that privacy. I mean, I'll ask you, hand on your heart, Izaz, you've been a solicitor for over 20 years. How many times have you actually read terms and conditions online?
About 3 times.
You know, I don't think I have. Maybe I've looked at it just to be critical of somebody else's terms.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you look at the privacy policy of some of the big boys, I mean, it's absolutely giving them carte blanche to do anything they want with your data. Yeah. And we tick it and we tick it and we tick it. Yeah. And they absolutely batter you. And they're doing it for one reason only, for profit. So you need to really start thinking respectfully about your own data, for your own family's data, your children's data, etc., because it is getting out of control. And there is discussions with the UK government for us to get out of the EU data protection and have a more of an American model, which will be basically just do what you want with the data, you know. And then you've seen the problems that we've had with various elections and with Facebook's power. At least the EU tried to put into place, you know, reasonable restrictions on how people abuse or look after your data. So it's a bit of a battle. The free market wants to be able to do whatever it wants with the data, other people think there should be some form of safety net. And hopefully there'll be a balance, as all these things hopefully will be. But data protection is going to be massive. Please look at our Stay Legal website, and any questions at all, come back to Izaz and myself.
Just one last point I was going to mention was, so in summary, I think it's really, really key and critical that any organisation addresses this issue to do with data protection, data retention, and what consents they have and what they can and cannot do. Have a system in place to make that aspect of it very, very easy to facilitate and to make preference requirements. And also, absolutely key, look at your own terms and conditions in relation to it and make an assessment of it. Are we operating within the realms of our terms? Are we doing anything extra? Do we need to change what we're doing here? Do we need to obtain consent? And it's better to have a very small database of key things, key individuals or customers or suppliers, than to have literally thousands on that list that if you were to market to, you could cause a lot of upset and reputational damage. So I think it's key to sort of get your house in order, have your terms and conditions and privacy policies, data protection notices, all of this looked at and reviewed against what you were actually doing, and then safeguard yourself for the future.
Top man. Izaz, I'll see you soon, and thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Take care.